Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices for Justice podcast, part of the Higher Endeavor Network's Equity and Racial Justice Learning Track. This podcast seeks to enhance equity-mindedness through conversations addressing critical topics and highlighting asset-based narratives from practitioners in the field. I'm your host, Taya Britten, and today we have a special episode for you on the topic of motivating a team to stay the course. We're joined by a phenomenal guest, Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer, CEO of HCM Strategy Group from 2007 to 2017, Vice President of Student Success at Dillard University in Louisiana, and Principal at HCM Strategists. Through her work in organizational effectiveness, Barnes-Teamer has guided institutions and leaders towards stronger, more equitable cultures with a focus on capacity building, transformation, and long-term impact. In this conversation, we'll talk about what it takes to keep teams motivated in challenging times, how to build trust and collaboration across roles, and why equity work requires both strategy and heart. Dr. Barnes-Teamer will also reflect on her own leadership journey, including lessons learned, advice for new leaders, and what it means to lead as a Black woman in higher education. I'll start by sharing a brief bio about Dr. Barnes-Teamer, and then we'll dive right in. As CEO of HCM Strategy Group, LLC, Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer brings more than 30 years of experience in organizational effectiveness, strategic planning, board and staff development, coaching, strategic enrollment management, student success, engagement and impact, research, assessment, and evaluation. Barnes-Teamer provides expertise in federal, state, and system-level research, policy, and cross-sector collaboration. Prior to starting her own firm, she was a principal at a DC-based firm, having served in leadership roles at four-year private and public institutions, community and technical colleges, and historically Black colleges and universities. Barnes-Teamer holds bachelor's and master's degrees from Loyola University and a PhD from the University of New Orleans. I mean, we've only got 30 minutes. You've seen. I've got lots of questions. But if you could just get us started, would you like Toya? Would you like
Toya?
Okay,
yes.
Welcome. Toya and Taya, coming to you live from the UNCF UNITE Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. If you could just get us started, I mean, you've spent your career helping institutions build stronger, more inclusive cultures. What first drew you to this type of work?
So as a first-generation college student, I'm from New Orleans. You'll hear it as I talk to you all, and reading all of that, you made me feel real old, so I'm just going to tell you that too. But as a first-generation college student, I attended an HBCU as a trio student in Upward Bound. So had it not been for Southern University at New Orleans and the Upward Bound program there, I would not be sitting here with you today. Also being the fourth of six children in my family, where only two of us received four-year degrees. However, three of my siblings did get either certificates or diplomas from the two-year side of the house, which is as important to me as the four-year side of the house. It's just, what do you need to gain access to from an education perspective in order to live the kind of life you want to live, right?
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I have always had a passion for helping students like myself get in and through college, whether it's 2-year or 4-year, to do the things that they aspire to do.
Amazing. And so, as a woman of color, you've had a session. I went to the session last year. It's my favorite. I'm excited that it's back this year. It's called Risk Resilience. It focuses on risk resilience and reform, about being a space for Black women. And as someone who is coming back into the space, as someone who has seen themselves, sees the impact of all the work that can be done, do you have any thoughts or reflections on what it's been like to be a Black woman in this space?
Oh, yeah. So when we say in this space, I'm going to take the space from a higher education perspective in general, just because I've worked for so many different types of institutions and systems. And I would say that it hasn't been an easy journey. I can tell you from two different perspectives, most of my bosses in higher education have been men. Whether men of color or not, which I find very interesting when we have way more women of color in college than we have men of color, and men in general right now, right? So it's interesting the dynamics of who winds up at the top of the totem pole. Not to take anything away from our men, because I'm all about that as well. But it's been interesting for me to understand the dynamics of the differences between women and men in this space. And so because higher education is based on a traditional system for white men, even in our HBCU environments, where many of the supporters of our HBCUs built our institutions on the same framework. And so trying to help young women navigate through the space, but still being authentic to who they are, can sometimes be a challenge. So people ask me all the time, like, how did you do this and blah, blah, blah. And I always say I was raised by wolves because the majority of my bosses were men. So, you learn, and again, I'm aging myself. You do not cry in the work environment. You come 120% when it's time to show up for anything. You cannot show up, half, what. Yeah. So for me, it's just trying to help a lot of people in general, because I have just as many young men that I work with and mentor and coach, but for young women, like, how do we show up? The differences between how people see Black women in these spaces versus how they see everybody else.
How, knowing the teams that you've led and going from being on teams led by men to now being a CEO, and now you're in charge of teams. Yeah. What have you taken from either leaders who have led you before, or maybe through all the different teams that you've led? Just what experiences, highlights maybe have taught you about how you lead now?
So I will tell you, I always use this term called failing forward. So again, as a young leader, I tended to mimic and model everything about my former bosses, good and bad. As I have become more seasoned in this space, I've realized that I should take the good from all of my supervisors and leave the bad, right? And so I've had to learn, as a woman leader, you would expect that most women leaders are more empathetic. I think I came across as more hardcore because I didn't want us using excuses for what we could not do, if that makes sense. As I've gotten older and more seasoned, I realized that, I needed to soften up. I've even had a boss that said to me, Toya, you don't have to beat the people to make them do what they're supposed to be doing. So I've had to learn that that was not a motivating factor, and that really motivation comes from within. So we have to learn to inspire people to want to do the work that they need to do and remind them why they're there.
Yeah. So maybe if you could share on one of the teams that you've been on, what have been some things that have helped you do that, to have helped you inspire your team to either have a shared vision or model the way or anything of that sort?
I would say, honestly, it was a traumatic experience that got me to this place, and that was Katrina. So when Katrina hit in New Orleans, I was managing 5 campuses of the Louisiana Community and Technical College system. And those 5 campuses, we had 250 employees on 5 campuses. We had 1,200 students on 5 campuses. And I'm serving a population that was underrepresented, under-resourced, et cetera. So a lot of our faculty, staff, and students wound up being evacuated, not evacuating. And so having to talk to people at shelters to say to them, do not send my employees further away from the state because I need them to come back in order for me to keep them on payroll, really helped me to understand the needs of others in a way that I had never experienced that before.
And so the needs of others, huge. And then also, what about the needs of yourself as a leader? Like, how do you manage when you are leading a team, there's really incredibly divisive things happening, and you have your own feelings, but you also have a team that you're leading forward. How do you inspire or use that to inspire yourself or keep going in that way?
So I don't know if it's because I'm just tired at this point that I yield to my team. So this might be the issue. So I'm not going to give you, normally as a younger leader, I would have given you the plan. But now I'm stepping back and I'm saying, okay, this is the challenge, or this is the contract, this is the scope of work. How do y'all feel we should address this? Who can take which components of this? And then we pull it back together so that everybody has ownership in the entire process.
Almost, and just to kind of summarize what I'm hearing, like motivating the team to feel like they are a part of the solution.
They are the solution.
And not I've got the solution and now you will go enact it.
Exactly.
But rather we all have a piece, we've all got stake in this.
That's correct.
And everyone's got part, which also takes tremendous trust. To be able to trust a team member to say, here's my idea, or what's your idea, and know that they'll follow through, you'll have grace for each other, that you'll be able to find your way forward.
And I would say the trust piece, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I would say throughout the career, it was different. So when I worked for others, some people were already there. I didn't hire those people.
Yeah.
So then you have to garner trust, but you also have to be trustworthy. And a lot of times as leaders, we look at it from the perspective of the employee and not us as the employer. So I want to be trustworthy, because being trustworthy, I think, helps others to garner trust.
That's awesome. And so for new folks who may just be leading a team, it sounds like some of the things you're saying are be trustworthy. You've got to model the way. You've got to show up and walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk.
That's correct.
But then as you continue to be more seasoned, you add some spice in your life.
Yeah, I say I'm cayenne pepper.
Cayenne pepper, I like that. Okay, I would be, I think, gosh, I like cinnamon. I'm always the sweet to folks' savory. Anyways, I digress. For folks who have been leading teams, it's kind of take that step back, see what the new ideas, the new generation of folks think could happen, and you, obviously understand, point things, figure it out, but really that listen piece.
Yeah, and understand that everybody on the team brings value, right? And not make assumptions about what value and what skills they bring.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we hire people to do specific jobs, and then we forget that they came to the job with other skills. Right?
Yeah.
So stepping back from that, and this is why I always say, like, this is the scope. Who has the skill set? Who wants to step up and take this? However, we're taking the responsibility is accountability.
Yep.
And so that's on both sides as well.
Awesome. With going, just to wrap up kind of this like leadership, understanding your journey, I just want to ask you if there's anything that you wish you had known earlier. Like if you could look back and tell Toya something when you were just starting in terms of leading teams, or just taking leadership positions.
Yeah, I would say what I preach today, I would have told my younger self is pay more attention to intent than ego.
Intent than ego.
Yeah, because as young leaders, we tend to be more focused on how do people see me? How do people view me? How am I showing up in the workspace? And less on what is the intention, what is the goal, but how do people view me and perceive me? So I always say less on ego, more on intent.
Less on ego, more on intent. I'm often, and I think this might also be something that ties to being a Black woman in the space as well, is always worrying about how we're being perceived or how we show up in this space or what might happen if we look one way or do our hair another way, or there's a lot of those internal things. And so I think especially that goes to, for everybody listening, but I think especially Black women listening in, that trying to take that apart and just showing up as our authentic selves is a huge piece of being true leaders and being authentic to our mission, our vision, and our own purpose.
And understanding your level of risk aversion.
Yeah.
And I do think
Which mountain is your mountain?
Yeah. And so for me, I'm just to the point in my life where I guess I just don't care. It's like, the way I am is who I am, and you have to accept me for that. But I know that's difficult for a lot of people that are just getting started. So. And
something, we had an amazing opening last night. Pearl Klieg.
Oh, goodness.
And just fabulous. She was talking a lot about the wisdom that older generations can give. Do you have anything, seeing like the landscape that higher ed is in right now, anything that really works well for you when you're re-energizing your team or when you're going through something like this, how you breathe life and emotion and all those things back into your team members?
Yeah, I always say stay the course, because things are going to always change, right? So again, because I live in New Orleans, so I live in an area where weather is always an issue, right? And so you got to stay the course. I mean, things are going to happen. So you got to have the plan, you got to pre-plan, post-plan, third plan, fourth plan. You just have to have plans in place that keep you from freaking out, getting all stressed out. And then you have to remember, so my favorite prayer is a serenity prayer. Okay. So, some things you can't control. And so you have to be willing to accept what you can accept. And then the rest of it, you got to leave it in the hands of somebody else. And I believe it in the hands of the man upstairs. So, yes, I would say wisdom for me is just not paying so much attention to what's happening environmentally to the point that you get paralyzed in your purpose.
Don't get paralyzed in your purpose.
Yeah.
Don't narrow into, or don't broaden yourself. I know we used it a lot of the term like doom scrolling. We've got a lot of people doom scrolling. So Dr. Toya says don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
One of the questions that I was going to ask you was how do you balance being both strategic and human in your leadership? But it sounds like you just answered that by knowing a plan, having a backup plan, but leaving space for the humanness of it. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and they keep you humble all the time. So just having that balance too, that you show up, you try to show up the same way all the time, but how people perceive you is different, and you can't control that.
Exactly. That's, as a type A, capital A person, you were saying have a plan, have a backup plan, and then the things you can't control. In my head, I'm like, well, I've got another list. That's like one of the things I can't control, and how do I figure out how to control them?
Yeah, no, you can't.
So it sounds like I just need to have you on one of my shoulders talking at me all day long. You can't control everything. I think for anybody listening in, I think examples are really helpful and really tangible. You shared one about your experience with Katrina. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other times that teamwork really helped you overcome a challenge, maybe when you were on a team and or leading a team?
So I would say that the Katrina experience, teamwork really played a role in that, because although I was responsible for the 5 institutions in the metropolitan New Orleans area, I had colleagues that worked across the state, but I also had colleagues in other states. So where my team may have wound up in Texas, in California, in Atlanta, I was able to pick up the phone and call colleagues to say, I have somebody in your area, I need you to give them an office space. And I need to be able to contact them. And so for the team to be able to come back, but for the team in Baton Rouge, which is where I was displaced, to step in and to help. Now, I also, even though I'm a consultant, full-time consultant on my own firm, I still work with teams, right? I work with other consultants, I work with other agencies like UNCF, like CCA and others. And so you always wind up being on a team. What I tend to do now is step back and see what's missing in the puzzle and can I fill in those places. But I don't always have to be the one up front.
Yeah. That's great. Finding what you're good at. And similar, it seems like when you were giving an example of here's the scope, where can people step in and step up? You're doing that for yourself as well.
Yes.
You're saying, all right, here's the thing that we need to address. Where do I fit in? And where does my skill set lend to this?
Yes.
Your leadership toolkit, if you will.
Yes.
Which tool are you going to pull out of your purse and use in any scenario? You can't use them all.
Nope.
You don't need a hammer and a drill and all this stuff all at once.
No, you do not.
That's awesome. So for a lot of the things you've been talking about has been about motivating teams to stay the course, and your tip when you look back at yourself, stay the course. Do you have any ways that leaders or folks on teams can measure that progress? Like, what does it look like to know that you're staying the course, but you're still making positive progress in a certain direction?
So I always talk about celebrate the small wins.
Okay.
So setting up timelines on different projects. And so, all right, we got through quarter 1, y'all. Hand clap, right? Get to quarter 2, we might have some little issues. How do we modify, right? I talked about failing forward. And so that's kind of how we measure success is when we wrote this scope, what did we tell them our deliverables were going to be?
Yeah.
Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. I think honestly, and I hate when people hate when we say this, but higher education and post-secondary education is a business. We should be doing the same thing, right? I think it's one of the reasons why many of our institutions may have challenges is because we're not setting realistic goals in small bite sizes. We tend to look at things at the macro level, which is difficult to get through if you don't set those other goals.
In higher ed too, sometimes the plans take 3 to 5 years to even see the next thing. And in higher ed, there's turnover. There's other things where folks are doing different functional areas at different times. There's lots of committees and things happening. And so it's helpful to think of it almost like a business, to take that lens in. I remember I've been in some professional development sessions where it's like, we need to be more, I'm forgetting
nimble?
the term. Nimble, but like treat higher ed like a business. It was said in a different way, but we tend to get caught up in let's make sure we do this right, and let's make sure everything does, and it takes a whole year to create the plan. And then you've got to implement the plan.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful to have tangible things like set your own timelines and find those small wins.
And be realistic. I mean, you can have aspirational goals, but I always say, especially from my strategic enrollment management background, like you have to set realistic goals as you set aspirational goals.
Same time,
At the
coinciding.
same time.
Amazing. Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left, and so I really want to make sure we get to talk about our lovely HBCUs and your experience with HBCUs. You've worked with a wide range of institution types, but we're at UNCF UNITE. We were remiss not to talk about the culture and amazingness that is HBCUs. From your perspective, what makes leading and supporting teams or being at an HBCU, what makes that unique?
So I would say honestly, because let me say this. When I worked in the private PWI environment, we didn't have people wearing 3 and 4 hats. In the community college environment and in the HBCU environment, we have people wearing 3 and 4 hats.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hats that we give people are not in the areas that they're skilled in. So it's hard to put it on the backs of the person if we're assigning them to do things that they never said they wanted to do or that they had the skill set to do. And time is not on our side when you think about HBCUs, right? And because we actually do look at the work that we do from a passion perspective, more than I've seen in any other environment where I've worked, it's the emotional toll on the team as well. So we have to pay attention and balance that piece as well, the mental, the emotional toll, that we are working with less to provide all of this to our students who we value.
Yeah.
But it can wear you out.
And there's that concept of also those ... other duties as assigned.
Yes.
And we often, especially as Black women in higher education space, there's just lots of research and things that say we do a lot. We're on the committees. We're seeing additional young women because we want to mentor them. We're doing all these other advisory councils. We're on everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to hear what you're saying, because I think that really resonates of not only are you doing less with more, or you're serving a specific population, but you care so much that you're doing more. So you've got your job, you've got your other duties as assigned, and then you've got your personal life.
Yeah.
All of which, I mean, like you said, you're a mother, you have all these other identities, and that makes HBCU so special.
Yeah.
And it also makes working at an HBCU very unique, because you've got to find folks who can compartmentalize, might not be the right word to say, but you've got to know how to wear each of your hats.
Yes.
You got to know what outfit they go with.
Yes.
You got to know what room they work well in.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really helpful to know. Do you see, I've never been to an HBCU, so I would love to know from your perspective, what strengths do you see in HBCU environments? Like, what's working really, really well that HBCUs are doing recently?
I must say that, and I think this has worked well for HBCUs over the years, is the fact that it's a place where our people belong. Like you walk on any HBCU campus, like I get emotional because I know
Yeah.
about the history of these institutions, how did they come to be. I'm meeting with the students on campus. I know what they're aspiring to do and who they want to be. And if it were not for those faculty and staff, right? And so for me, it's a different environment. So when we talk about it being a business, sometimes it's difficult to see the business in the HBCU environment because sometimes we're the family. I've been the auntie, you know, I honestly have students in Atlanta that's coming to see me at the hotel who have graduated, who are doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And so we become a part of family. And so when I think about the hard work that's done, but then I see these students at graduation. They mama crying, the grandma crying, I'm on the stage crying, everybody crying, because we know what it took to get that student across that stage.
And all the different people who had a part. It takes a village, right?
It takes a village.
I recently visited Lincoln University, and there's a church there, like right off their campus, that was a known spot as a part of the Underground Railroad. And when I heard that, they brought us and they showed us, and I was like, this just hits different. I mean, and I went to University of Georgia, go Dogs, for my graduate degree, and they always say, SEC, it just means more. And I'm hearing that as you're talking about HBCUs too, like it just means more.
It does.
When there's history and there's context and there's family and there's traditions and there's so much that just makes an HBCU environment create that sense of belonging, which we know is one of those big pillars. Yeah. You can be good at school, you can know what you want to do, but if you wake up every morning and you can't even get out of bed because you're unhappy, then where do you go from there? And I'm watching the videos and I have major FOMO because I'm like, oh, dang, I'm excited for homecoming. I'm ready to see everybody give their shout outs.
I went to PWI, but because we had so many HBCUs in my area.
In the area?
That's where we hung out. Xavier, Dillard, Suno, that's where I was, so.
Is there anything in terms of your leadership, working at HBCUs or working with teams, etc., that has just inspired you or left a lasting impact? Maybe it re-energized you to stay the course?
I think, honestly, the staff members who worked with me, who are now doing their own thing, again, I'm just like a proud mama. It's like, you know, I look, so Nia and I work together, and Monica and I work together. So there's so many people here who were on my teams or worked with my teams who are now doing all of this great stuff that's impacting the world.
Yeah.
It just makes me proud. So for me, that's the thing. It's like, how do we grow the next set of leaders who are going to do phenomenal work with the commitment to our communities, because that's what's most important. Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Dillard University, where you were Vice President for Student Success, which is HBCU, founded in 1869 in New Orleans, the oldest HBCU in Louisiana.
That's right.
What is one of your favorite traditions at Dillard?
Oh, Lord Jesus. So I'm going to tell this story quickly, and then I'll tell you what the tradition is. So I actually met my husband. My in-laws both retired from Dillard University.
Okay.
So I dated this man on campus for a whole bunch of years. People actually think I have a degree from Dillard, but I do not. But I think there are two things that, traditions that I love about Dillard is the parting ceremony in Lawless Chapel, where that's where the parents and the guardians, older brothers, sisters, aunts, whoever are with the new students, and then we part. And there are drums, and people are crying. We're telling them we're taking these young people, we're going to take care of them, and we'll see you in 4 years. And then to see them walk down the Avenue of the Oaks.
That's amazing. So traditions at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Like not just at commencement or doing a rite of Sankofa or something like that, but at the start.
It's from the beginning.
And that's amazing because that then breeds tradition.
Yes.
And that gets you excited about being a part of those things that come next. We've got a few minutes left, so we'll head into some final reflections. I'd love to know about what gives you hope about the direction of higher education and where it's moving when it comes to equity and when it comes to student success.
So, of course, you know, and I'm going to stay purple. I'm not going to go down the lack of bipartisan road. So I'll stay here. But I think what gives me hope is organizations like UNCF that continues to bring groups together for this common goal of continuing to be committed to our students and helping them to move forward. So it's the education, it's the grooming, it's the coaching, it's the mentoring, and that we have to stay really focused on keeping our institutions here in spite of. And so seeing young people like you and others in these environments is really what gives me hope. Because honestly, I hope I can retire in 5 years. And some little people,
we're manifesting it.
People are taking over this company to continue to do the work that is important to me, and that is serving our students.
I really like what you were saying about despite and in spite of, because I think a lot of African Americans in higher education today, we're entering rooms and systems that were not built for us. And oftentimes our metrics are maybe check boxes, and we come into a space and it might not be great, but I'll be darned if I don't finish.
Yeah.
And then that metric of success might not truly be a metric of success.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about despite, I think, is really powerful, because students may be persisting, but are they thriving?
Yeah.
And do they have that sense of belonging? And are they going to come back as alums and give back to the institutions?
Yeah, and the other thing is I tell people all the time, when people are reacting to what's happening right now, I'm like, look, we came through slavery, people.
Yeah.
Y'all brought us here. We didn't ask to come here. And now you mad because we done took over everything, right? Now you don't want us to talk about DE&I.
Yeah.
Because, so this is crazy, but it's because you're fearful. And if we keep reminding ourselves, we have the power. You're afraid. That's why you're doing the stuff that you're doing right now.
And our amazing colleague Nia, she said something once that was, we've been here before. We've seen this before. We've gone through this before. It might be in a different font. It might look different, but we've done this.
And we've learned lessons. So, I have students that'll say to me, Dr. Teamer, should I go out and protest? I say, let's think about this. A lot of these policies they set up, assuming it was only going to impact people of color. Now we see who else is being impacted. Let them go out there and march. We don't have to go right now. We need to be thinking about what's the next plan.
Yeah. Is there anything, as we come to our final moments, for anybody who's listening to the podcast today, any final thoughts, comments that we didn't get to talk about when it comes to motivating teams to stay the course?
Yeah, I would say just reminding the team of what's the North Star? Like, what is the vision for the organization, for the institution, reminding people of what their role is and all of that, valuing what people bring to the table, and giving people grace. Like, we have got to give people grace. And we're not, because everybody's so wound up and worked up, it's like, go have a drink. So we just have to give people grace and just remember the power that we have. Yeah. Because we're some powerful people.
We're stronger than we think.
You give us access to anything. I could go Tiger Woods, golf, and so we take over everything. And
you let us in the room, and then the spotlight's
on
us.
So you stay afraid. I'm not gonna be afraid.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. As we close, I just want to give another thanks to Dr. Barnes-Teamer for sharing your experience with us. Thank you at home for tuning in. Be sure to check out future episodes of the Voices for Justice podcast as we continue to highlight powerful stories and important discussions around equity and justice.